to call this Village Board meeting to order on Tuesday, September 3rd, 2019, and ask you if you would please rise and join the Village Board in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Baldino.
Here.
Trustee Scaletta.
Here.
Trustee Canty.
Here.
Trustee Rosenberg.
Here.
Trustee LaBedz.
Here.
Trustee Schwingbeck.
Here.
Trustee Tinaglia.
Here.
Trustee Padovani. President Hayes.
Here. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes, and we've got 4 sets to approve tonight. The first is from the Committee of the Whole meeting from August 5, 2019. Are there any changes or passes?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Trustee Scaletta, seconded by Trustee LaBedz. Any questions or comments from the board or the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes from August 13, 2019. Are there any changes or passes?
Move approval. Second.
Motion to approve by Trustee Rosenberg, seconded by Trustee Baldino. Any questions or comments from the board or the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes from August 19, 2019. Any changes or passes?
Pass.
Passed by Trustee Scaletta.
Move approval. Second.
Motion to approve by Trustee LaBedz, seconded by Trustee Canty. Any questions or comments from the board? Anything from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And finally, the Village Board meeting minutes from that same evening, August 19, 2019. Passed again by Trustee Scaletta or not?
No, I actually made it to that
That's
part
right.
of the meeting.
Okay, I remember that. And any other passes or changes?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Trustee Baldino and seconded by Trustee Tinaglia. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, next we move on to the warrant register, and I call on Trustee Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I move approval of the warrant register with a check date of August 30th, 2019 in the amount of $2,863,945.21.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Rosenberg, second by Trustee Scaletta. Any questions or comments from the board? Anything from the audience? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Rosenberg.
Yes.
Trustee Scaletta.
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck.
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz.
Yes.
Trustee Baldino.
Yes.
Trustee Canty.
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia.
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. Well, we move on in the agenda to recognitions and presentations, and it's a very special evening here, as you can tell by most of you who've been able to join us today. We thank you so much for coming to help us honor and celebrate all the great achievements of one very fine individual in the village of Arlington Heights, and that's Mary Stitt, who is tonight being awarded the 2019 Kenneth Hood Senior Service Award by the Senior Citizens Commission. And so to make some introductory comments, I'd like to introduce the chairman of our Senior Citizens Commission, if he's out there, Fred Feldman. Fred?
Present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Kenneth Hood Senior Service Award was established by the Village of Arlington Heights under the auspices of the Senior Citizens Commission 12 years ago to identify and recognize residents, business people, and volunteers in the village who have made a significant contribution to the well-being of the village's senior citizens. This is becoming increasingly important as every year greater numbers of senior citizens are choosing to age in place rather than leaving the area. To be eligible, a nominee should have exhibited a significant history of service to the senior community, embracing activities that affect seniors in a positive way, while demonstrating a zest for the joy of living. This year's Kenneth Hood Senior Service Award winner, Ms. Mary Stitt, exhibits all of these traits. Mary Stitt has been serving the community for more than 50 years, beginning as a longtime educator and principal of the Olive Mary Stitt School, and also with the Arlington Heights Rotary as a member, volunteer, and board member. Ms. Stitt served on the Arlington Heights Senior Center Incorporated Board of Directors for more than 20 years. Inc., as it's commonly called, is a volunteer charitable fundraising organization whose purpose is to raise funds to supplement and enhance the operations, facilities, and services of the Senior Center. She worked on fundraisers such as golf outings at senior health fairs and wherever she was needed. For most of that time, Mary was the chairperson of its nominating committee. Most of the current board members of Inc. were recruited by her. It's been said that one cannot say no to Mary. As a member of the First United Methodist Church of Arlington Heights, Mary conducts volunteer visits to fellow members and others who are hospitalized at Northwest Community Hospital, bringing them spiritual comfort and cheer. Her other activities, while not directly related to the senior community, also deserve recognition. Mary has traveled to Nigeria, India, and Niger, volunteering in polio immunization clinics. She has traveled to Cuba, Guatemala, and other countries to provide clean water, medicines, and necessities for persons of all ages. For years, Ms. Stitt routinely also volunteered at local immunization clinics. It's clearly evident that Ms. Mary Stitt is worthy of the title of 2019 winner of the Kenneth Hood Senior Service Award. Congratulations, Mary Stitt.
Mary, why don't you come forward? Come on. Well, why don't you turn this way, Mary, before I give this to you officially. Let me just make a few additional comments. I had the pleasure of knowing Ken Hood as a member of this community and especially on our Senior Citizens Commission for many years. And so it's really a great pleasure and honor for me to present the Ken Hood Senior Service Award every year to a very deserving individual because he represented the qualities that all of our award winners have demonstrated over the course of their long lifetimes of service, not just to the village of Arlington Heights, but to the surrounding regions. And so every year I just have the pleasure of giving this award to a very deserving individual, and I can't think of an individual who's more deserving than Mary Stitt. I've had the pleasure of knowing Mary for almost 50 years myself. She is the mother of one of my high school classmates at Prospect High School. So I think I first became aware of Mary back in 1970 when me and her daughter Carolyn entered Prospect High School that year. And so since then, I've had the pleasure of knowing her as a principal of now Olive Mary Stitt School, where my daughter attended for a couple of years. And now the pleasure of going back there on many occasions to talk to the students there about local government. And she's left such a great legacy at that school. And it's just clearly demonstrated every time I go there, Mary, how great not just the students and administrators, but everyone involved with Olive Mary Stitt School really reflects the great tradition and the values that you imparted to all those at your school. And so it's not just your time at school, but I think I go to a lot of volunteer luncheons where we're recognizing people who've given back to their community. And it just so happens that Mary is at every single one of those volunteer luncheons.
26 years.
Yeah, and so it's just great that I get to see her so often, but that she's contributed so much to really so many different organizations in the village of Arlington Heights and surrounding areas. And so I know she's touched me personally over the course of my lifetime and really been a great role model for me to follow. But I know she's touched and impacted everyone in this room as well. you wouldn't be here if you weren't impacted by Mary Stitt in one way or another. So, Mary, we can't thank you enough for all that you've contributed to the Village of Arlington Heights and many, many individuals. And I know you've left a great legacy for not only your family, but also all residents in the Village of Arlington Heights. So I will now officially congratulate you and present you with the Ken Hood Award for 2019.
Thank you.
Congratulations. I'm going to hold that for you because it's heavy. I'm going to give you the microphone,
Okay.
if you would.
I thought I was going to get away without having to speak. It's a wonderful experience to be honored, and I appreciate it very much. I've enjoyed my 26 years on the Arlington Heights Senior Center Inc. Board. I didn't always enjoy asking different vendors for prizes. That was a little hard. Once I received 8 pounds of coffee, and I was very it's just, that was a wonderful prize because everybody likes getting very fresh coffee. But I enjoyed, and I'm sorry to reach the point where I said I think I've been there long enough. But I was on the senior center 1 year longer than I was at Olive School. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. Congratulations. Great work. Charles, can you just give that to them to put the award in? Well, this is the time in the agenda when you get to make a quick exit. So unless you want to stay for the remainder of the agenda, I would invite those who were here for the special presentation to exit quietly, and then we'll get on with our agenda. So thank you for joining us tonight. We'll move on in the agenda to citizens to be heard. And we do have one individual who wishes to speak to the board on an item not on the agenda. Heidi Graham. Heidi. Welcome, Heidi.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for having me. Again, I'm Heidi Graham. I'm president of the Arlington Heights League of Women Voters of Arlington Heights, Mount Prospect, Buffalo Grove, Elk Grove Village, Wheeling, and Prospect Heights. And I am also a proud member of the Arlington Heights community. As you may know, our group has started a new initiative, which is observing our local government. We call it our Observer Corps. It is in its beta phase, and we have members. In fact, we have a member here tonight, Bill Slankard, who is attending tonight's board meeting and will be reporting on that, on the meeting. But we also are trying to attend other board meetings in our community, commission meetings, et cetera. Our mission for doing this is to provide transparency, follow public comments, and determine whether any of the issues about which we advocate arise, such as affordable housing, or any other such issues. Though we are just getting started and have had members attend a few meetings in Arlington Heights, our reports so far show that this village is doing a great job with transparency and affording a voice to the public, though we do have one point that we would like to bring before the board. In tonight's agenda and in every agenda for the village board meeting, there is an item for citizens to be heard, and we appreciate that. We applaud the welcoming of involved and engaged citizenry. We are also aware that in the board meetings and in the committee of the whole meetings, citizens are asked for comments before each motion is voted on. We have noticed, however, that in the agenda for meetings other than the board meeting, there is no separate item in the agenda for citizens to voice their concerns. Though we do recognize that there is almost always a time where that is asked for. It is just not an actual agenda item. In fact, at tonight's Housing Commission that I sat in on, listening to the members discuss a very difficult conversation surrounding affordable housing and grappling with how we should deal with this as the kind community that we are, they did absolutely offer space for public comment, but it is not an agenda item. So we are encouraging the board to consider recommending that all the various committees and commissions that hold public meetings add such an item to their agenda. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. We have never in our nearly 100-year history endorsed a party or a candidate. And we are entering our 100th year anniversary year, 1920. Among our core values, we believe that the citizenship requires knowledge as well as the ability and will to act, and the responsibility of good government rests on the shoulder of its citizens. We will work with our local governments to keep these core values front and center, and we very much appreciate the Village Board for helping us in this endeavor. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Heidi. And just to address your concern, we do, in all of our public meetings, allow the opportunity for audience participation, audience input on items on the particular agendas. And so we would continue to do that and continue to encourage public participation in agenda items. The problem with allowing citizens to be heard at committee of the whole meetings or board or commission meetings is that those is opening the comment period to anything and everything that's not on the agenda. And unfortunately, the committee of the whole meetings, we just don't have the time to get into items that are not on the agenda. Same thing with the boards and commission meetings. They're there for a very specific purpose to discuss and get business done in a specified period of time. And so their mission, their purpose is to address those agenda items. And so that's why public comment is allowed on the agenda items, but not anything that would distract them from their mission that evening. And so I continue to encourage public comment during our committee of the whole meetings on items on the agenda, but we just can't. For example, tonight we started at 7:15. You saw we were a little bit late getting back in here. If we had allowed citizens to be heard, let's say we had 2 or 3 individuals that were going to speak for 3 minutes apiece, we'd never get in here till 8:15, 8:30. So I think there is ample opportunity for citizens to be heard at our formal village board meetings twice a month, and also to the village board members in other ways. Doesn't have to be in a public forum, but we're accessible through personal contact, through phone calls, through emails, whatever way you want to contact me or any members of the board. We're always accessible. It's a 24/7 job. And so we're always willing to listen. It just won't necessarily be in a public forum. So that's my response. All right. I have no other blue cards from individuals who wish to speak on an item not on the agenda. So we will move forward to our report of old business to include the items that were at our earlier meeting from this evening, September 3rd. And I'd first call on Trustee LaBedz.
Thank you, Mayor Hayes. I move now, as I did earlier this evening, to recommend that the Village Board of Trustees recommend to the Liquor Commissioner the issuance of a Class E liquor license to 888 Corp., doing business as Gourmet Thai Restaurant located at 170 North Arlington Heights Road.
Second.
Motion by trustee LaBedz, seconded by trustee Canty. Any questions or comments from the board? Anything from the audience? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations. Gourmet Thai, are you still here? There you are. Congratulations and good luck to you. Continued success at that location. And next we have the swearing in of two individuals to our Housing Commission. And for the first motion, I'd call on trustee Scaletta.
Thank you, Mayor Hayes. I would move now, as I did earlier this evening, to concur in the mayor's appointment of Ken Kiefer with a term ending April 30th, 2020.
I think trustee Tinaglia was the seconder.
Second.
All right. Motion by trustee Scaletta, seconded by trustee Tinaglia. Any questions or comments from the board? Anything from the audience? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
All right, the motion carries. And Ken, if you come forward to the podium. And we'll make it official if you just raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and state your full name,
I, Kenneth Kiefer,
having been appointed to the Housing Commission
having been appointed to the Housing Commission
in the village of Arlington Heights,
Village of Arlington Heights,
in the county of Cook,
in the County of Cook,
do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duty
of the office according to the best of my ability.
of the office according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations, Ken. Come forward if you would. Need to sign your oath with our village clerk, but also I'm going to present you with a village logo pin that I and the other elected and appointed members of this community wear as a representative of this village. So please wear it proudly.
I will do.
Thank you for your service.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And for the next motion, I call on trustee Tinaglia.
Thanks, Mayor Hayes. I'd like to move now, as I did earlier this evening, to concur in the mayor's appointment of David Miller to the Housing Commission with a term ending of 4/30/22.
Second.
Motion by trustee Tinaglia, second by trustee Rosenberg. Any questions or comments from the board? Trustee Canty.
I want to use this opportunity to thank the staff for their efforts in trying to bring more diversity to our applicant pool for our boards and commissions, and to the mayor for the work that he's put in interviewing the candidates. I know it's not an easy job, but I just want to reiterate, as I said earlier, the fact that I am uncomfortable in 2019 with a board a commission that doesn't have any women or persons of color serving on it for our village.
All right, anything further from the board? Just in response, I just want to make the public aware that I interviewed all 8 applications that I received for the Housing Commission. And we did solicit applicants more than in the usual manner. We advertised through social media. I know I, from this position here, advertised that we had openings, not only in the Housing Commission, but other boards and commissions. And by word of mouth, a number of our village board members also made sure that the public was aware that we were looking for people, in particular for the Housing Commission. And out of this large community, I received 8 applications. There were some women, some men. I interviewed all 8. We had very good in-depth interviews about the Housing Commission and about philosophies of local government and about affordable housing and the qualifications that they could bring to the table. And after the completion of those 8 interviews, it was my feeling that these 2 individuals that we've appointed tonight are best suited, best fit for a number of reasons, and especially what they can bring to the table. And so that's the reason why I recommended both of these individuals that are being sworn in tonight. So with that, we have a motion and a second. Anything further from the board? Anything from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
All right, David, if you come forward. And if you would raise your right hand and repeat after me, I, and state your full name.
I, David Miller,
Having been appointed to the Housing Commission
having been appointed to the Housing Commission
in the Village of Arlington Heights
in the Village of Arlington Heights
in the County of Cook,
in the County of Cook,
do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office according to the best of my ability.
of the office according to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations, David. We know you well. And same for you, if you'd sign your oath to make it official, and then let me present you with the village logo pin. Please wear it proudly, and thank you for your service. Looking forward to working with you. All right, there is no other old business, and so we move on to the consent agenda. Are there any members of the board who wish to remove an item on the consent agenda? Any members of the audience who wish to remove an item on the consent agenda? Seeing none, are there any members of the board who wish to vote no or pass on any item on the consent agenda? Seeing none, and entertain a motion to approve
So move.
Second.
by trustee LaBedz, seconded by trustee Rosenberg. Any questions or comments from the board? Anything from the audience? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee LaBedz?
Yes.
Trustee Rosenberg?
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia?
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes.
Trustee Scaletta?
Yes.
Trustee Canty?
Yes.
Trustee Baldino?
Yes.
President Hayes?
Yes. Move on then to approval of bids, and we have 3 bids to approve tonight. And the first is general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2019. Mr. Recklouse, do you want to start this?
I'm going to let Mr. Keeney kick this one off.
Mr. Recklouse, can you hear me? One time this microphone wasn't working, I wanted to make sure. We had a bond refunding that was done this morning, and we sought bids for some bonds. It's for the latter part of some existing bonds that we had that we're looking to refund. They were carrying a higher interest rate. We were able to get very competitive rates for this refunding, and I won't go into details because I know our Kevin McKenna, president of Spear Financial, is here to describe this to you, but it was very good, so it's good news for the Kevin.
Well, Kevin, it's always good to see you because that means that we're in a good financial position. And so we thank you for joining us again tonight.
Thank you. Things did work out well today. We took bids to refund your Series 2011, which were outstanding with 4% coupons. We received 9 bidders showed up, putting in a total of 43 bids. The best bid was Morgan Stanley out of New York at a 1.349%. So the 1.349 replaces the 4% coupons. Savings is about $1.2 million. It's an unusual time for interest rates if you watch what's going on, read it in the paper, but if you're issuing debt, it's a great time. So I think things worked out very well. I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you. Trustee Rosenberg.
Thank you. Kevin, as always, great job, and we appreciate all the work you do and trying to save us money. And if there's any other ideas you have that can save us another $1 million, we're happy to have them, so.
I'll think about it.
And if Mr. Keeney wants to finance another $30 or $40 million worth of bonds, so we'll send them your way. So thank you for your work.
Anything further from the board? Seeing none, can we go ahead and approve the ordinance, take it out of order?
There's a motion on the bid first.
Motion on the bid. All right, so we need a motion to approve the bid. Trustee Scaletta,
I would move to approve the bid.
is there a second?
Second.
Motion by trustee Scaletta, seconded by trustee LaBedz. All those in favor? Oh, this is a voice
There
vote.
should be a voice vote.
Yeah.
No, you could do a voice vote, yeah.
Okay, well, any further discussion? Anything from the audience? Let's do a voice vote on this. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and next, why don't we go ahead and take this out of order? If we could take the ordinance providing for the issuance, and I'll let somebody read that. So it's in the record. Out of order. First, we need the motion to take legal B out of order.
So moved.
By trustee Tinaglia,
And we have to
seconded
read-
by trustee.
I think we need to read it.
Well, this is just to take it out of order.
Oh, okay.
Seconded by trustee Rosenberg.
Yes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, next, we need a motion to approve the ordinance, and I'll call on trustee Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move approval of an ordinance providing for the issuance of $8,645,000 worth of general.
Excuse me, Trustee Rosenberg, you're looking at a draft. The real ordinance number is,
Here we go.
$7,985,000.
your printed copy was printed on Friday.
No, the
That
one
was
I
the old
have
amount.
says 8.6.
Right, you got the old agenda as well.
This was updated just this afternoon.
This
We got the
afternoon.
actual bids.
Have you got it?
Got to buy one of those
Yeah.
copiers.
Okay, let's start over, sorry. An ordinance approving for the issuance of $7,985,000 worth of general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2019 of the Village of Arlington Heights, Cook County, Illinois, for the purpose of refunding certain outstanding bonds of said village, providing for the levy and collection of a direct annual tax sufficient to pay the principal and interest on said bonds, and authorizing the sale of said bonds to the purchaser thereof.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Rosenberg, second by Trustee Canty. Any questions or comments from the board? Anything from the audience? Melissa, you have to come forward. Just give us your full name if you would.
Melissa Kerr, what's this direct annual tax?
Mr. Keeney, you want to address that?
Yes, every bond that the village has, any general obligation bond, carries annual debt service costs associated with that. On this particular bond, I believe there's 6 years left on that, so this is 6 years left to pay the debt service on this particular bond. The village's total debt service is the combination of all our bonds that we have outstanding.
How would you apportion that to property tax? Your outstanding debt or the debt on this particular one?
I guess maybe the question, if you could answer what impact this might have on a resident's property tax, this action tonight, if any.
This action tonight will reduce, because we're not talking about replacing this particular bond or these savings, but it's done over time. So the 2019 savings, there are no savings for this levy year. I believe we have like $24,000 savings for the next 2 years, and then after that it goes up to about $230,000 for the next 3 or 4 years. So there will be some savings shown on the debt service side of things. That's just one of the many levies the village has, though.
All right, and are those numbers in the village's budget?
They will be, yes. And they have been up until this point.
And would a person be able to take the numbers out of there to figure out what their property's bill is going to look like? Or, outstanding debt per property?
No, you'd really have to wait until we have the total debt service that would be published in the next budget.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. All right, anything else from the audience? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Trustee Rosenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Canty,
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck,
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia,
Yes.
Trustee Baldino,
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz,
Yes.
Trustee Scaletta,
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. All right, thanks again, Kevin. Until next time. All right, we move on then to approval of business item B. It's the parking guidance system and lighting for the Vale Avenue Garage. Mr. Recklaus?
Thank you, Mayor. Back in last fall, there was a presentation on the downtown parking study, and a number of recommendations were made for enhancing our parking system downtown. Back on January 14th, there's a committee of the whole meeting, and we discussed what we were calling Phase 1 parking improvements. Among those, there were 2 items that were the board directed staff to implement. One of which was a parking guidance system for our parking garage, for the Vale parking garage, and another one was enhanced signage downtown. Since that time, staff has been working on both of those items. In addition, another item for the repainting of the Vale garage is going to be coming before the board in the second meeting in September. But these items before you tonight represent some enhancements to our system that we think are going to make life easier for visitors and residents in our downtown parking system. make it a little bit easier to get around, make it a little bit easier to use. We've given a couple updates over the past couple of months to the board on these items, but I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Enright, who's going to walk us through what we're discussing and potentially voting on this evening.
Thank you, Randy. With respect to the parking guidance system, which is item B, the village issued a request for proposals. This did not technically go out to bid, but it was a request for proposals for a parking guidance system in the Vale Avenue garage. The village received 5 proposals that were itemized in the village board packet. Quercus, Echo Technologies were both about the same, $348,000, $349,000. Q-Free was $490,000, Park Assist $579,000, Amano $793,000. The staff committee, representative of planning department, the village manager's office, the public works department, police department, and our IT division, had representatives on the committee that evaluated all these proposals over a series of several months. As part of that, we did reference checks for the entity that we are recommending, which is Echo Technologies. We chose Echo, recommending Echo to you because the pricing was one of the lower ones, but also the reason for that is that the technology is based on a wireless communication between the parking guidance cameras, which observe all parking spaces in the garage, levels 1 through 4, not level 5, and then communicate that information wirelessly to the other components of the system throughout the garage. The other systems have a lot more infrastructure, therefore some of them cost a lot more, and then the installation is a lot higher, and we believe the long-term maintenance could be more cumbersome. So this technology is relatively new in the industry. Echo was awarded an award from a National Parking Association for their development of this technology. As part of Echo's proposal, they also included as an option that was not requested, but it was an option because they did observe our lighting levels could be improved in the Vale Garage, which we have been improving over the last couple of years, but we've only installed a few new lights in there and have quite a few to go, enhancing our lighting system. Their lighting system that they're recommending would then be tied to this parking guidance system and would save us a lot on energy costs. We're currently incurring about $50,000 a year in energy costs. We don't know exactly how much it's going to save us, but it could save us half. But we'll see because the system will dim when there isn't anybody around the lights, still to a safe level, but a little lower than maximum lighting. So we have the ability to adjust these lights too, but there will be a lot less light fixtures because they're down the center of the aisles versus 2 on each side above the parking rows. So with each of these new lights would be attached the parking guidance system, which has a series of LED lights that indicate red or green. If there's spaces available, they would light green. In addition, this system would then send communication to LED boards at the entrances to the Vale Garage, 2 off of Vale, 2 off of Highland. I have an example here. We're in the process of designing it, but this is pretty close to final design. The one on the left would indicate each of the levels by color, and then the second column would be what type of parking that is, whether it's free or permit, which then would change on L4 and L5, those upper levels at 12 noon to free. So that's the difference between the one on the left and the one on the right. And then the last column would give you the number of spaces that are available on each level, and that's real-time data. So one of the great things about the system is it lets customers know, okay, where can I park and how many spaces are available. And then when they traverse the garage, there will be these lights above the parking rows, and each light and camera monitors a total of 6 stalls. So if all 6 are occupied, you would have a red light with that fixture. If any one of those are vacant, it would be a green light so people could see those lights and look up ahead and find an open space. It could be as many as 1 open space or all 6, depending upon where you are in the garage. Another neat thing of this system is that it gives us real-time data all year long in the garage and reports that back to a system that we would have in our computers, select staff, to monitor how every space is utilized in the garage on levels 1 through 4. Level 5 is a little bit different. It'll still be monitored, but it'll be monitored by a camera system when you exit and enter level 5 because there's no roof there, so you can't have these individual systems monitoring every 6 spaces. But you will get the aggregate, so that the signs that you see up there that will be at the entries will give you the total number of spaces available, and we'll still be able to track that. We just won't be able to track it as specifically by each individual row or aisle. So, staff is recommending Echo for these reasons. One is the cost and the wireless nature of the technology, which we feel is going to be a lot less long-term maintenance. In addition, they've installed on level 4 of the garage at the southern portion 6 light fixtures that have been installed for about 3 weeks now with the Falcon monitoring system. I've been hooked up to the dashboard, so I've been able to observe whether or not it works, and it's worked fine, perfectly so far. And we've tested it out with staff driving in different spaces and someone monitoring it. And I've been able to look at data over the weekends to see the usage of this particular drive aisle. So the system to this point has worked very well for us on the demo that we've had. The lighting is outstanding. It's much improved over what we've had in the past. We do have money budgeted in the next couple of years for enhancing all the light in the garage, but these lights, Public Works really feels will be even far superior to what we were going with. We can still reuse some of the lights that we've installed in this garage and possibly other garages, but we feel this is a far superior lighting system. It'll be brighter than the garage that we have now, and we can adjust it. The top level and the lower level can be adjusted to wherever we want the settings. And again, the neat thing is you save a lot on energy costs because they don't stay at their top light level if there's no activity. So overnight, when 3 a.m. to 5 a.m., 6 a.m., there's not much activity in much of the garage. So those will go down to a little bit dimmer lighting level. We can adjust that. It won't go down to 0, but it'll certainly save on energy costs. So it's for those reasons that staff is recommending this this particular vendor. We've done reference checks with other communities, both public and private entities that have installed it and received positive feedback from those entities. It appears to me that this is going to become the technology because it's obviously wireless based, which is kind of the way of the world with a lot of things. And our ET department, Robert Traska in particular, really likes it, as does Public Works, because there's a lot less infrastructure involved. So there is an annual fee to run the system. It starts at about $13,000 a year, but we're going to certainly save at least that in energy costs with this new lighting system versus what we were currently have or what we were going to install. So it's for that reason that multiple reasons why we're recommending this particular firm.
Thanks, Bill. Anything else from the staff? All right, questions from the board. Trustee Tinaglia.
Thanks, Mayor. So Bill, do you remember what was staff's estimate several months back when this whole discussion started? What were you guys thinking this project might cost?
Well, it was a wide range, and anywhere from $350,000 to $748,000. That was what was presented to the village board at the committee of the whole in January of this year. Some of the bids, the next item that I'll talk about, the parking signage exterior, was higher than we anticipated. The guidance system, we had some estimates from anywhere from $134,000 to $464,000. This bid that we're recommending was $349,000, so it was in that range. Several of the others were above that. So overall, the top end that was presented was $748,000, and the village has allocated funds in the reserves towards projects in the downtown with respect to the parking implementation.
Yeah, that's the way I remembered it, and I was really glad to see this number is coming in definitely in that category, in that ballpark. So that's excellent, and especially with the higher technology that you guys are experiencing and advocating. This enhanced lighting that you're talking about as well, I think is excellent. The parking garage needs it badly. I've certainly heard enough about it from residents and some of the commercial businesses downtown who use it regularly. Just wanted to verify, you have 4 of these entrance boards planned right now, is that correct?
That's correct.
There'll be 4 of those, 1 at each exit? Excellent. And you commented, I wrote it down here, but I was going to ask, this system is going to allow you guys to do a parking tracking analysis like at any given moment, on any given day, all year long. So parking studies are going to be really advantageous for our planning department at this point going forward.
That'll be very advantageous to be able to get those counts throughout the year.
That's excellent. And the last thing I just want to ask, and I think I know the answer to this, all of these parking stalls, how many are there in the building right now?
There's about 1,150.
Okay, so of this 1,150 stalls, we've got 5 levels of parking. Is anything that we're going to do with this system going to disallow us from moving people around in the future? In other words, who parks where, when, and so on? Or is this like ultimate flexibility so that 2 years from now we want to move a certain group of permit parkers up to here, or we want to move retail people over there, and commuters wherever? All of that is still super flexible with this, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay. Trustee Scaletta.
Thank you. A couple of questions. The new lighting system, I was reading your memo or your introductory, and I know that the lights for the spaces are LED. Are the lights that are going to be installed along the middle, those are LED as well, I would imagine?
Yes.
Okay. And when you say that the light that the system will realize that somebody hasn't been in the area there's been no motion in 5 minutes, let's say, how low does it bring it? Will it be lower in light than what we currently have now?
No, and I've been observing it. We've had the 6 lights installed for several weeks, as has Public Works, and even at their lowest level, it's providing better light than what we have now. And we can adjust whatever that level might be. Right now, they have it adjusted to the lowest level. Well, actually, it could go off, I guess, but not recommended any lower than it is currently in the demo, and it's still brighter than what we've got now.
Okay, because I know many women who have would like to see the garages be well lit or better lit, and my thought was if someone is sitting in their vehicle and all of a sudden there's no motion detected and the lights dim down to a spot, I want to make sure that it's still a comfortable spot for them to exit their vehicle, because that was the whole point of installing the new system.
Yeah, and if I could, the neat thing about this system with the Falcon guidance, it will give us data on the lighting levels as well. So we'll know how often they go down to a certain level and go back up with movement. So we'll be able to track that as well. And as I said, we can adjust what that low level is to a higher level and what the high level is to a lower level or anything in between as we work with the system.
Okay. Do we have a camera that will that's on the entrance near each of these signs?
A camera?
Currently, do we have cameras in the garage,
No.
Vale? Okay.
No.
The reason I ask is that, you have a system where the board is going to change. Just concerned people are going to try and utilize that the sign said this, and that's why I parked there. But we're going to have all of our existing signs throughout the garage as a backup to what the digital sign is going to say. You follow where I'm going, right?
The signs are actually one of the things we're looking at updating as well. So hopefully they'll be more clear than they are today based on the feedback and direction of the board from January. That's another phase of this project as well.
We've tried that a couple times. I don't know how much more clear we can be. But I agree, it's always best to be as clear as possible. So I just was concerned about these the boards as you enter in, that, you know, I mean, obviously, the only days that we really have to be concerned is when the daylight savings changes back and forth, but I wouldn't want someone to then try and take these boards, so that's why I was wondering if there was a camera that would be on them. Okay. And so there's not there's not a light above every single space?
There is not. There would be a light for every 6 spaces, so 3 on one side of the drive aisle, 3 on the other. And then there will be a camera facing 3 spaces to the left, and another camera facing 3 spaces to the right. They're tiny little cameras, but that's what they pick up.
Okay. And so, like, when we looked at the original proposal of all the recommendations and everything, we saw a light above every single one of those, and we talked about how expensive that would be, and so I can appreciate why we're going with this system. So you won't be able to tell where the space is other than looking at the spaces. You won't be looking at lights. Instead, you'll be looking for spaces, correct?
Yeah, the light system will direct you down the path to where there might be an available space by indicating green.
Okay.
And then once you get there, you just have to look to the left or the right.
Right. Final question has to do with the installation plan of the lighting. So how long will it take them to install the lighting in the garage, and how will that impact the operation of the garage?
You know, we're going to be, if the board directs us to move forward with this, we're going to negotiate a contract. It's going to take, they probably won't finish a project if it starts early October till, you know, mid-January or late January. They could start installing some of the lighting well in advance of that, but they would only they can still keep the drive aisles wide open. They might have to have it down to half an aisle and take up, you know, you'd have to drive around it and you might lose 4 or 5 spaces just directly to where they're putting a new light fixture in. But we're going to do it, you know, mostly during, you know, we don't want to do it at, you know, 7 at night on a Friday either. So we'd want to do it during most of the install during off-peak.
Okay. I have no other questions. So I'm pleased that we're moving forward with this. The sooner the better.
Trustee LaBedz.
Thank you. Bill, you mentioned the cameras for these, and I kind of made me think of a couple questions, kind of opposite one each from the other. One is, are they usable at all in a public safety method, or what do they really show? And then on the converse side, is there any sort of privacy issue with the camera, with having all these multiple cameras in the garage?
With the demo system that I have, that I'm linked into on my computer, I can pull up each and every camera. Right now there's 6 times 2, so there's 12, and they're very clear. You cannot read a license plate very clearly, but if there is some sort of a break-in or something, or vandalism to a car, because there's movement, the camera will record that and keep it for 2 months. So it could be used in that sense for safety. With respect to privacy issues, I really would I don't know about that. You know.
I mean, it's public, so.
Yeah, I mean, we have cameras in our downtown and other locations,
Yeah.
so I'm assuming it's not a problem. It's pretty commonplace, I think, in a lot of
public
areas.
parking garage.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Trustee Baldino.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of quick questions. So looking at this first slide here, you have the signs and the way they would look before and after noon. And each of those levels are color-coded. Are we planning to repaint the levels to correspond with the levels that are on these signs?
Not repaint, but we are going to install, as Randy was alluding to, additional signage on each of the levels that will not only tell you what level you're on one of the side columns and support columns, but also tell you what aisle you're in. We've never named these aisles by anything, so the north aisle, drive aisle, would be A, and then there's 4 drive aisles in the garage, so it'd be A, B, C, and D. So there will be periodic signs in the drive aisles that let you know that you're on level 4, aisle C, so that people have an idea where they park, because sometimes they might think they're in a different aisle. So that'll be helpful. And those particular signs will be color-coded. They're going to be about 3.5 feet by 2 feet, and they will have a color backing to them, and they'll be reflective. In addition to that, by each of the stairwells facing inwards, we're going to have very large color-coded signs telling you what level you're on, as well as the color at the bottom, and those are going to be at probably 4.5 feet by 2.5 feet. So those will be very visible. They'll be affixed to the wall, which will be painted white. That's what Randy was alluding to earlier with the bid on painting. So we're not going to go crazy with color in the garage at this point. We'll see how it works, but we can always add a little more color to the support columns in the future.
Right. Well, and just to be clear, my question isn't necessarily geared toward remembering where people parked. It's the complaint has always been people go up there and they don't know what's free, what's permit, and it's about making sure people know where they can and cannot park.
Yeah, and some of the signage that we've started to install is on the cross beams as you drive, telling you when you get to a certain level, what level that is, number one. So we've already gotten positive feedback on that from the public. But then also when you get to level 4, we want to have on the cross beams in multiple locations a sign that says prior to noon it's permit parking, and then after 12 noon it's free parking. And those will be colorized as well and very, very obvious on the cross beams. So we want to utilize the cross beam signage to get across some of those ideas.
Okay. And my second question has to do with the optional signage. So if I did the math and the dollar amount that's in the recommendation includes the optional signs, which I like. My question is, how many signs is that? It says level 4 and 5. Is that 2 signs on each level? Is it 4 signs on each level?
2 on each, so a total of 4.
Total of 4. Okay. And just in case people misunderstood me, I am for doing those optional signs, because when you go up there, it'll tell you which direction to go when you get to those free parking levels.
That's correct.
Thank you, Mayor.
Trustee Schwingbeck.
Thank you, Mayor. Bill, Randy, thanks for your hard work on this project. I was at all the meetings when you were originally discussing it as a resident prior to being put on the board. I like the lighting enhancements. I don't really have an issue with that. Where I really am looking at this, it's a small parking garage. We're looking at a total of 5 floors, 2 of which no visitors can park on anyway. So we're really looking at 1, 4, and 5. Coming downtown during the middle of the week, there's usually no issues finding a place to park anywhere. Where people are usually having issues is on the weekends. And trying to find a spot on the first floor on a weekend is almost impossible. So almost immediately people go up to 4 and 5. And on crowded nights when there's things going on downtown, Harmony Park, something at the Metropolis, is it hard to find a place to park? Yes, it's not impossible. You give yourself a little extra time. You go up to the 4th floor, maybe go up to the roof. But in all the years I've been parking in the garage, I have never had to leave the garage and go back out onto the street to look for a place to park. I like the lighting, but to lump this all in one big package, to spend $349,000 to really do something for, in my opinion, a couple of floors is a lot of money. I mean, I'd almost like to, if we are going to keep this as one recommendation, I don't feel comfortable voting in favor of it. I like the lighting. I like that from a safety standpoint. People are up on the roof and on the 4th floor, and that is a concern. You know, in a garage like this, you want a lot of lighting. You want people to feel safe in the garage. But to spend $350,000 on, I mean, I really like the system if this were a 20-story parking garage in the Loop, where you're going around and around trying to find a place. But in a little garage like this, I think we could use that money elsewhere rather than put a system like this in.
If I could, Trustee Canty.
I just wanted to say I share your thoughts, Trustee Schwingbeck. I thought that when I heard this first come up, the lighting is great. improved signage is great. I don't know that we need an LED light system telling us how many parking spaces are available on what is essentially 2 floors.
Trustee Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. Bill, as far as, has this been vetted out to the extent of weather issues and things like that for heat and cold, that it's all operational in those times?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this system has been in operation in, extreme conditions in the south. Echo's been around in terms of manufacturing these lights. They're actually more efficient because they're made out of aluminum versus plastic. So they're more efficient from that standpoint and can withstand the weather better, probably, in terms of, just cold and heat. So, yeah, it's been vetted for sure. Our Public Works Department we've had these lights installed. Obviously, it's been nice weather, but PW's, looked at the specifics of the lights themselves and has no issues at all with that.
So when you said the maintenance starts at 13,000, what does that mean?
It's not. I didn't say it was maintenance. It's a annual fee for the system.
Software.
So it's the software program that runs it. The data that's provided to us, we don't buy that. It's not it's proprietary to Echo, not to us. So we're paying for that system, just like we pay for Microsoft Office. So,
But are there different levels of annual maintenance or or annual costs?
Well, this is the basic. This is as basic as we would get. There are going to be in the future higher levels with as they develop the camera technology, potentially doing license plate recognition, which if it ever gets to a point you could do enforcement with that, but not at this level.
And then can you explain, as far as the 5th floor, you said it's going to determine, there's, let's say, 300 spaces on the 5th floor, for example. It'll know how many cars are parked there, you said?
Right, in an aggregate. It
And
won't
how will
know
it-
individually by space like the other levels. However, there will be cameras at the entrance points and exit points to the 5th level. When you first come out of the garage going up to 5th level, you then go outside because there's no ceiling. Right there, that's where the cameras would be mounted on the north and south sides.
So ideally, if someone goes up there, it'll record them as using a space, ideally. But if they decide not to park there, when they exit, it'll then subtract it then?
Correct.
Okay. So it'll always track that. I think one thing that's really important is, as far as on these really levels 2 and 3 that really are not available to the public for the most part, is to make sure that, there's enough, I guess, signage or wordage as far as verbiage on there, that indicates that people can park there somehow. And I don't know how you do that on a space about this big, but so it really is, because I don't think a lot of people understand how that works. So, I could barely read that, so hopefully it'll be a lot darker when they pull in the garage, though. This is an expensive system. I'm glad we didn't pick, obviously, the most expensive system. I feel that this is probably one of the biggest complaints that I hear as far as from residents, that they don't know where to park and which spaces to go to and, what are available to the public and what aren't. So hopefully this will help that along and give people more ability to recognize what's available and what isn't. So, I like the new lighting. I looked at it. So, I'm in favor of the system. So.
Did you have something, Randy?
Just quickly, if I could, I was going to just try to address the concerns expressed by Trustee Schwingbeck and Canty, if I could. One of the things that we found when we did the parking study back in the fall is if you're a resident who lives here, then, those of us that frequent downtown regularly, as you said, you can generally find a space on the 4th or 5th floor. That what we were finding was people who aren't from Arlington Heights, who are coming to visit, maybe they have theater tickets, maybe that dinner reservations, they're driving around stressfully. They don't know when they enter that garage, they don't know that they're going to find a space all the way to the top, and it's a big investment in time to see if they will. The other thing is, sometimes residents of the two buildings, of the garages, those permit spaces can be taken up depending on if you're a resident and you get home before a lot of the commuters do. There's times when all those permit spaces are taken, and then you've got to drive up to the 5th floor and move your car down. And so we heard feedback that that's information that's valuable to them. But to Trustee Rosenberg's point, we could have had those 2 floors kind of omitted from this. Number one, we thought that would be confusing because people would be, what's the deal with the 2nd and 3rd floor? But the other thing is it's another opportunity to reinforce coming into the garage that the 2nd and 3rd floor are not for you if you're a visitor. It's a permit place. But that was the argument. Now, whether or not, it's the board's prerogative to determine if those things have value and how much value. But I just want to clarify that a lot of that, the reason we were pursuing this was based on some of the feedback that we received in the fall prior to you as individuals taking office. And I'm not sure if you had been at those meetings or not.
Trustee Tinaglia.
Thanks, Mayor Hayes. Thanks, Randy. Your point is well taken. I appreciate your explanation there. Bill, these 2 columns on either side here, where it says free and then the 3 zeros. So I drive up and I see that the yellow level 5 is free, and those 3 zeros might say 15, or they may say 115, or they may say 0. And those cameras, or the way that's figured out there is not individually, it's just kind of globally. But the number that's transferred down to the 1st floor entrance is a finite number of 15 or 150 or whatever it is, just as it is for the other floors.
Correct.
So the fact that they're not individual spaces pointed out that it's this one on aisle B and so on, it's just a number that we see here on the 1st floor that says there's 32 spaces open on the 1st floor or the 4th floor or the 5th floor, whatever that's shown there. And we have to drive up and just go find one of those spaces, right? That's how it works, right?
Yes, but that, one of the benefits too of these additional signs that you see at the bottom there, which isn't that's just an example, is that once you get to those upper levels, it will then direct you further to go to the left or the right, because usually to the right would be to the south, and that's where you're going to find a lot of parking on levels 4 and 5 to the south half of the garage.
Right. Excellent. I mean, that's what I was hoping for. I don't think we needed any more detail than that. All the other detail that we were talking about earlier is for you guys, for managing it. It's not for the user. Nobody cares about all those details except us. We just want to know that there's 25 spaces available when I pull up and I've got my dinner reservations at La Tosca and I got to get a spot quick. I know I'll be able to find one up there. So that's the whole idea on this. The only other comment I wanted to make was I think our society is very color coordinated as opposed to word oriented. So I'm going to really push you guys. I think you need to really be thinking about, I see yellow, I see purple, I see blue, red, green, whatever you guys are going to use here on this chart. I think you need to get those colors as often and as obvious as you can on every one of those floors, especially due to the fact that they're tilted. And we don't know where floor 4 starts and where floor 3 ends. But if it's blue, I know I'm in the blue. Or if it's red, I know I'm in red. And I'll remember that as I entered the building. I can get to purple and I'll be okay. So signs are great and words are great, but colors are better.
Trustee Scaletta.
Thank you. It's been almost a year since we received this parking study from Rich and Associates, and over the years, Rich and Associates has provided us a lot of information as well as other businesses in town or developers looking to come to town. When we went through, or when they put together their findings, they had to do a count of all the open spaces and the occupied spaces in the garage, and that cost money. And I liked this system for several reasons. One was because we can get these parking counts. I mean, everyone always talks about it's the perception that there's not enough parking in downtown Arlington Heights. It's there. All you got to do is drive up and you'll find it. It's that perception. And if we can change that parking perception, that there isn't enough, that's going to be a positive experience for someone visiting downtown Arlington Heights, which improves the brand of downtown Arlington Heights, which is ultimately free marketing for downtown Arlington Heights. And so I am supportive of this because I think that at the end of the day that this system is going to pay us back. I think that we are going to get more out of the system than we think we are. And when you look at the number and you go, great, we get four signs and a bunch of cameras, and it doesn't feel, you don't feel the value. I will feel the value in the years to come when I know that we'll have parking counts, and we can ask staff at any time and go, all right, so what's going on this floor and that floor? And you know, this past year in January, I've heard from a lot of inside Arlington Heights and outside of Arlington Heights, a lot of restaurants complaining about the impact that the polar vortex had on their business. Well, we could all, you know, aside from looking at sales tax revenue, we could look at what are the counts. When somebody tries to, whether it's from the newspaper or from the police department, and they're trying to guesstimate how many people were at the main event or at the Taste or any of our other events, we should be able to look at that and try and gather information from that. I remember, you know, in the drive-in business, every single car that came into the drive-in, on average, counted for 2.3 to 2.4 people. I think that's something else that we, not necessarily that number, but that's something that we could use as well when we're trying to understand how many people are in our downtown for a specific event. So I'm still very supportive of this, and I'm ready to make a motion at the appropriate time, Mayor.
Trustee LaBedz.
I want to say I agree, first of all, with Trustee Tinaglia and the colors, because that's always been one of my things, is not knowing how to differentiate from one level to the next. And I'm looking forward to these changes as helping that a lot. But I'm also supportive of this. And I agree, a lot of the feedback I had heard was anecdotal feedback about people not living in the community and not realizing they can go up to the 4th or 5th floor. And I think that this will help. And I'm also hopeful that as people begin to see this as a tool they can use, that it will alleviate some of the on-street parking complaints that we have from residents, you know, down Campbell, down Vale, down, you know, the various streets, because people will realize if they go in, they can see right away that there is a place to park, and they don't have to go 2 or 3 blocks down the street to park in front of somebody's house and possibly block their driveway. And that's not going to always work for our big functions, the main event and Taste, and you know, even some of the big Friday night Sounds of Summer concerts, which bring in a lot of people. But I'm hopeful that it may help with that issue too.
Well, if nothing further from the board, I also see a great deal of value in this. I'm glad it's at the lower end of the range, the projected range, than higher than that. And I also note that the money is coming from the parking fund rather than from the general fund. I think that's a significant distinction. So I would then, if there's nothing else from the board, is anyone in the audience who wishes to address the board on this issue? So, Melissa, if you come forward.
Yeah, is the village parking lot open at the same time? So people could just park over here and then stroll on over to wherever they want to go? Okay, I would encourage that. And the train stops on the weekend. You can get a $10 pass and ride the train all over Metro, all over the area, so I'd encourage that. And yeah, having a green light and a red light over a parking space that's empty or full, that seems like a waste of lights, but you said it's only every 6 spaces. And also the top level, I walked my bike up the levels, and some idiot across the street in the apartment was cleaning their windows. Well, they could just have a camera and look down and see how many empty spaces there are there. And also the parking lot is pretty small. I drove through it on Saturday, and the lanes are real thin, so if you have a big SUV, you're not going to want to drive all the way up because it's pretty risky.
Okay, thank you. All right, if nothing further, I'd entertain a motion. Trustee Scaletta?
I would move approval of the bid for the parking guidance system and lighting for Vale Avenue Garage.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Scaletta, seconded by Trustee Tinaglia. Anything further from the board or the audience? If not, we can voice vote on this.
No, it's an award of a bid.
Bid,
It's
okay.
also a budget amendment, part
Right.
of it.
Roll call.
Trustee Scaletta,
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia,
Yes.
Trustee Rosenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck,
No.
Trustee Baldino,
Yes.
Trustee Canty,
No.
Trustee LaBedz,
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. We move on then to downtown parking signs.
Let Mr. Enright handle this one.
Thank you, Mayor, Board. Another component of the recommendations from the parking study that was discussed by the Committee of the Whole earlier this year was additional signage for the Vale Garage and the North Garage, as well as several surface parking lots to, again, let people who are coming to the downtown for the first time know where our public parking is and enhance the exterior signage. One of the proposals is to do a large parking sign, a blade sign that you see on the left here. That's about 19-20 feet up and down and about 2.5 feet wide, that would be affixed to the facade of the Vale Garage at the northeast corner facing Vale, where the stair tower is located. There would be a second sign on the North Garage off of Evergreen Avenue above the entrance there, same size. In addition, we were looking at several parking lots because those are surface parking lots that are available in the evenings for customers and are largely underutilized or not used at all. Lot A along Northwest Highway is about 250 parking spaces, very underutilized after 6 p.m. So we'd like to put a pole sign that's about 18, 19 feet tall. The sign itself is about 8.5 feet up and down. That would be lit by solar energy panel. There would be an entrance, signs, a pole sign at the entrance off of Vale, and then further west at the entrance off of Northwest Highway. Also Lot E, which is just south of the tracks, south of the train station. The two entrances and exits, one off Vale, one off Dunton, would have the pole sign. We were also initially looking at pole signs for the former train station site. Lot H on Northwest Highway and Evergreen, and then also across from the underground garage on Evergreen. But because of the cost, the bid coming in higher than the original estimates, we're not recommending those at this time. We don't think they're as critical at this point, although we do want to look at the Evergreen signage when the streetscape is reconfigured next year with the crosswalk. In addition to private parking enhancements that the owner of Evergreen, Arlington Town Square is going to be implementing. So the bids, we only received one bid on this. We sent it out to 3 entities that had originally given us estimates. So the bids were quite a bit higher. We did work with the lone bidder, which is QT Signs of Schaumburg, that we've done a lot of work with, and they've done a lot of work in Arlington Heights to bring down the costs of the large blade sign on the Vale Garage and the North Garage. We were able to save about $5,000 per blade sign. And then with the pole-mounted signs, we were able to get a different vendor that's a little less expensive. So we save the pole itself a little less expensive. So that's about $1,282 savings. So at the end of the day, we're recommending the 2 blade signs and then 4 pole-mounted signs at this point in time for a total of $165,298, and that bid would be awarded QT Signs. As with the parking guidance system, there's been money from reserves to be transferred into the parking fund for these projects. And although the bids did come in higher, QT Signs actually had provided one of the lower estimates of the 3. One of the other companies we reached out to, they didn't bid because of their current workload. I'm not sure about the third company, why they didn't bid. But we have made some adjustments, some reduction to the scope to bring it more in line. When you add up the projects, primarily the parking guidance system and lighting, as well as this project, in addition to some painting that Randy had alluded to earlier on the interior of the Vale and North Garage, we're still within the $750,000 allotment that was discussed at Committee of the Whole is at the high end. In fact, these all total about $700,000. So that'd be the parking guidance system, the recommendation here for the external signage, and then some painting, which will be a separate bid coming in, I believe, later this month.
Questions from the board? Trustee Tinaglia.
Thanks, Mayor. On those exterior lots, the outlots, like A and so on, will you have a placard somewhere on there that identifies it as free after 6 p.m.? I feel like, and maybe it's just me, I don't know if others feel the same way, but it seems like nobody knows, or very few people know that those are free to park, and they're afraid that they're commuter token lots or private lots owned by somebody, and even though they are late for their dinner reservation, they're afraid to park in there. So is there anything we can do to help alleviate that with a part of the sign that says that?
I mean, we could look at that at the bottom of it, but the idea of these pole signs was just to get people's attention, that there is a parking lot there. It may or may not be obvious, but then when you get to the location, we want to enhance the signage that really focuses on the availability of these after a certain time period as being free.
So that's a separate piece of the puzzle?
I would look at it as a separate piece of the puzzle. We didn't want to inundate this one sign with that. We just wanted to call attention to it with a fairly large sign that's almost 20 feet at the height, and getting across this red P or white P on the red background, just to bring people's attention to these lots so that they don't just bypass them.
But you'll find a way to make it clear once they arrive there that these are available.
The idea of this, one of the things that we heard was that even the garage, the Vale Street garage, there's no signage to, again, a visitor who's not familiar with the town indicating that this is public parking. And this, anywhere where you see this sign, it's going to signify to someone coming up that this is where our public parking is, during the evening hours. And so when you get into the space, this individual spaces will say, what the limitations are. But the idea is to put something simple, clean, that says parking to people, and indicates that this is where you can park. One of the critiques, I think, that was made, and I think rightfully so, of our existing signage is, while we really tell you the whole story, the problem is we tell you the whole story. And it's not that easy always if you're kind of in a hurry, again, at a glance. And so we're hoping that this can kind of tell that story where it says public parking on the bottom, that people will take that as a
Randy, does it say that on the bottom of these pole signs too, where it says, I see where it says public parking on the blade sign for the building? Does it say it above lot A too?
It just says parking. We could play with it a little bit, though. There's,
you
can
see
always
where I'm
add
referring
it.
to? It's,
Yes.
You've got that that little one sentence there.
On the one on the left, it says public parking. The other one isn't clear. Were you going to say something, Diana? Or?
Yes, I can offer some additional information. Is that we're going to be launching our mobile pay app. Actually, we're going to do a soft launch next week, so we're very excited about that. And as part of that initiative, we're looking at the signage in these lots and trying to see how we can update the signage. There's so many signs telling you so many different things that a cleanup is really necessary. So we're going to do a soft launch with the mobile pay. So this will allow those commuters, visitors, guests that want to park before noon, they can pay via the app. So they download the app. They note their parking space and number. They add it into the app, and then they can go about the rest of their day. So as part of that initiative, we will be cleaning up these signs. We'll look for more opportunities to rework some of the signs, do a big marketing campaign, update our maps and so forth. To note that it's free after 12 noon. So if you pull into any of these surface lots, it's actually free after 12 noon. And then I think we have free parking on the weekends. So that's a lot of information to,
I
to
bet
convey.
a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah. So we'll rework a marketing campaign. It'll be a good opportunity to do this.
So when I talked before about colors, can you go back to the slide where the colors were on here? Or is that a whole different program?
That's
Just
all
shows
I've got.
parking.
So I think the permit,
The permit
permit
that,
versus
where you've
the-
got the yellow and the purple and then the blue on the first. You could develop a theme so easily that the signs, where it says, where it's light blue like that, or if it's yellow or whatever ones you choose, you know, those signs in those lots, the blue mean go, you know, you're good to go with parking in those. Have your words, say what you need to say, but you're color coding everything in town then, and I think it makes a lot of sense. It would help a lot.
It's something we'll take a second look at, Trustee Tinaglia.
Trustee Scaletta.
Thanks. In follow-up to the colors, I mean, actually, if you go back and take a look at the minutes, we talk about that quite a bit as well. So I think it's something that we should try to find a way to incorporate, but we shouldn't rush into it because whatever we do, we're going to be doing for several years. And, you know, when we talk about changing the colors of like Vale Garage, right now we have a certain color for a sign that's a free parking space after 12 noon, and we have another spot that's free all the time. And so, yes, I want to see the color coding, but I want us to get it right. So, a couple of questions, and even part of it is my recollection of that meeting, and then also the minutes from that meeting. I remember us talking about, like, at the bottom of the blade sign, for example, that, like, public parking, that we would want it larger. Doesn't that ring a bell? Where it was going to be, like, public, stacked on the top of parking. I mean, that, I even remember the analogy that Trustee Tinaglia used, but I think that we need to find a way that we're not losing that message on these signs, and it does look pretty small. This is an illuminated sign, and it's going to be LED?
Internally lit, yeah.
LED?
I believe they're LED. Yeah, I don't know for sure, but I believe they are.
Okay. And let's talk about the other sign, because I am having a hard time getting my arms around a $25,000 pole with a sign. So this pole that'll be installed, are you able to then put a marketing piece on the other side underneath the solar sensor?
Could you, a marketing piece?
You know, like, you know how we have banners downtown
Right.
for trying to market the village or brand the village?
Well, we don't want to put too much on these. I mean, I'd have to find out structurally what these can withhold. Obviously, they're going to be designed to hold this sign up. Whether or not we would want to have other items on there, I'm not. Right, I'm not sure. So Charles is alluding to the fact that the sign is actually, what you see there is actually on the reverse side as well. But I don't think we would want to hang anything else on the pole, just because we don't want to clutter it. But we could look and see if these poles, I don't know the engineering of them, whether or not they can withstand additional items like banners to be affixed to it.
Okay. These prices were high when you gave us the estimates. How much higher are the estimates that you gave us back in January versus these current prices?
Well, back in January, we had estimates from 3 companies, including QT Signs, and the blade signs were estimated at $22,000 per sign. And these are coming in at the blade signs at $25,000, so close. The pole signs are quite a bit more. The pole mounted signs were estimated at $14,000 per, and they're up around $19,000. And the different components of this pole sign, the pole itself is about $5,000. The light, which is solar, is about $5,300, pretty expensive. The sign itself is about $8,300, and the install is $6,700.
Right, so the whole thing is really $30,000 for a pole and a sign, right? And the light, I mean, everything.
Well, the pole-mounted parking sign on the revised bid are $18,696 each. The blade
Okay,
signs.
I'm sorry. So it's 31,000 for the blade signs, and it is 25,000 for, almost 26,000 for these signs.
When you add in installation, yeah, correct.
And tax. Is there tax?
We're tax-free.
You don't pay tax.
No, I
exempt.
agree, but I mean, when you said, well, yeah, and installation, I mean, if it's part of it, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand it's coming out of the parking fund, and I know how the parking fund generates the funding. I'm just having a hard time with the cost of these. I mean, I understand completely the signs on the garage where you have 1,100 spaces. I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind. How many spaces are in Lot A, parking committee?
There's about, I want to say about 225 to 250 in that range.
Struggling with these polls.
One of the other things I could say is this phenomenon of things coming in over estimate, we're seeing across the board right now, in public works as well. And what we're told is it's just a function of the strength of the economy currently. There's not as many people looking for work. A lot of these businesses are booked up, and so they're increasing their prices because they can.
Could I just add 2 quick points? Just when the Rich and Associates presented their findings, one of the concerns before they were hired was, do we have enough parking? Do we need to build a new garage or an expansion to the garage? They basically said, don't spend $40,000 to $50,000 a space on a new garage. Promote the use of the spaces that you have. So yes, these are expensive signs, but they're designed to save money and not expand the garage, and promote the spaces that we have to let people and our customers that come, especially from out of town, know where they can park, so they can get to that lot. And when they get to that lot, they have the information on all the details of where they can park. The other point I'd like to make is, we have an entertainment district downtown. You go to any entertainment district, you go to Rosemont, you go to Oak Brook or anywhere else, they're going to have a parking guidance system in their garages. They're going to have signs that are expensive directing their customers to the parking spaces. So I think those are 2 important reasons why it was recommended to move forward on this, and this was some of the feedback that we heard through the focus groups, from the downtown businesses, from the customers. We're not downplaying the cost of it. That's why we've vetted this vendor. That's why we've looked at trying to reduce the scope of the project a little bit to still achieve those goals.
Thanks, Charles. Trustee Baldino.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the concerns that I had when we first started discussing these blade signs and the pole signs was there's a small area that's eye-catching, and the rest of the sign kind of blends in with the buildings and the surrounding area. And what we agreed to back then was that you were going to put up a couple of different mock-ups and look at them and see how well they stood out. And I'm wondering how that came out, because this is exactly what we were presented with way back in January.
Yeah, we did do that, and they stood out. These blade signs are almost 20 feet length and about 4 feet or so wide. So they're significant, and you can see them from, basically crossing the tracks. Now, there's different view corridors. Obviously, when the trees are more full, it's a little different versus the fall or winter, where it'll be even better visibility. But no, we did test it, mock-up to scale, and it was very prevalent.
The other suggestion that the board made at that time, which this does reflect, is that internal solar illumination, and that was and so again, remember, during the evening hours when we're seeing this peak demand, and that's when these will be lit up and will be much more visible. We did initially, when we discussed a mock-up, we were thinking about something you could have up for a couple of days and people could observe it and make comment on it. And what we found is that logistically there was no safe way to deploy a mock-up that we felt comfortable enough keeping up for a long period of time, because it was a bit of a hazard. because you couldn't really secure it to the garage without damaging the garage or making a permanent improvement easily. And so it's something that we kind of held up, took some photos of and looked at a little bit, but beyond that, we really couldn't keep it up on a semi-permanent basis safely.
Okay, well, thank you. I do think that these signs look nice, and that was one of the things that we wanted to be sure to maintain. But I guess if you're telling me that they stand out to somebody who doesn't live here and is coming downtown for the first time, and these are going to stand out enough for them to see it, then okay, I'll accept that. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Anybody else? Trustee LaBedz.
I think one of the things I like about these signs is that they are similar to what you'd see other places. And on the one hand, someone might say, oh, but we're Arlington Heights, we want to be special, we want to be different. But whenever you go visit another community and you're looking for their public parking lots, when you have some sort of somewhat standardized look to it, you realize, oh yeah, this at a glance, this is public parking. And that's kind of what this says to me. I know we often talk about, branding of Arlington Heights and so on, but we also want something that is easily recognizable, and that's kind of how I feel about these particular signs. I can't say that I've seen exactly the same thing, but they sure seem like stuff I've seen in other communities when we've gone to various downtowns and we've looked around for their public parking lots. So they are somewhat expensive, I realize. I do hope again that they'll help to do the trick.
Trustee Scaletta.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Rickles, I just want to read from the minutes of that meeting where we talked about these pole signs. It says, Mr. Rickles summarized that the board would like a larger lot name, arrows, brighten up the signs, internal illumination, use existing poles when possible, look at branding the lots, and make sure that there are not conflicts with existing banners. So is that something, were all those things encompassed before this was brought forward?
Those are all things that we analyzed as part of this in terms of how big you make the different components, the internal illumination, yes, brightening the sign, using existing poles. That was something that we couldn't do easily based on the locations that we found. But and we decided in terms of the branding of the lots, keeping it, when you come up with, whether you're coming up with names or something like that, we thought it was easier to just keep it simple. But so we did consider all those options, but I guess based on what we've gone through, this is what we're recommending. And if the board wants us to revisit any aspect of this a second time, we certainly can do so.
I ask because it looks identical to what was presented originally, and I'm really struggling with us spending this kind of money when we're really not getting exactly what we want, and it's just a lot of money for a pole sign. At least the ones that are on the building won't be hit by a car. I don't know what's going to happen to this sign.
Trustee Tinaglia.
So as Trustee Scaletta mentioned, I do remember the one comment that I had, an analogy to an existing sign here, and it was the theater sign. And we talked about this before, where it says public parking down below. It's so small, and do we really need the word parking again? Would it make sense to just, we've got P up the top, we've got parking as big as life. Can we just have the word public in there and make it a little bit bigger so that everybody understands this is a public parking lot? Do we have to use the word parking again?
Yeah, the graphic that I have here is from the original February meeting, but when we bid it out, the blade sign, instead of saying public parking at the bottom, it just says parking underneath. It says parking, and then it says public underneath it. And the public, PUBLIC, is the width of the sign, pretty much the whole width. So it's almost 4 feet wide, and the lettering's 7 inches tall, which is
So a little
much more
different
significant than what you see here.
Yeah, that's great.
And also, we looked at the option of, different color instead of the darker color here, which is kind of goldish, using white, because white always stands out better than anything against a darker background. And then with the pole signs, the only thing different from what you see is Lot A was a little bit bigger, more of a square, 2 feet by 2 feet almost, and then it would have an arrow underneath it.
What you've just described are improvements. I'd say really good improvements over this, so I'm in favor of all those.
Right, anything further from the board? Well, I'm in favor of these recommendation as well. I think there is value to it for the reasons stated the last time we discussed it and for the reasons that the staff has mentioned here this evening. So I think it is money well spent. Anything from the audience in this?
Hello, Melissa here. The A-Horse mascot can walk around and direct people where to park.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion. I'm not sure what to say. Where am I reading from here?
From
the
You can read the recommendation at the bottom.
recommendation.
Just want to read
The
all that.
Village
That's
Board
the motion.
award QT signs.
Got a copy of that here?
Of Schaumburg, Illinois, the contract for 2 parking garage blade signs and 4 pole-mounted parking signs in the amount of $165,298. Further recommended that the municipal parking fund budget be amended by transferring $165,300 from the parking fund reserves to account 235-7101-571-5025 and to authorize staff to execute the necessary documents.
So just as Mayor Hayes read, I would like to move that recommendation be exactly so.
Motion by Trustee Tinaglia. Is there a
Second.
second? By Trustee Baldino. Further questions or comments from the board? And nothing from the audience. Roll call.
Trustee Tinaglia.
Yes.
Trustee Baldino.
Yes.
Trustee Rosenberg.
Yes.
Trustee Scaletta.
No.
Trustee LaBedz.
Yes.
Trustee Canty.
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck.
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. All right, thank you, staff. And that is the end of our approval of bids. So we'll move on to new business finally. Thank you for being patient. This is the Northwest Crossings PUD amendment with variations for the property located at 1501 West Shore Drive. Petitioners present. Just introduce yourself, if you would, again for the record.
Of course. Good evening, Mayor Hayes, trustees. My name is Steve Bauer. I'm an attorney with Meltzer, Pertel, and Stell. I'm here this evening on behalf of the owner of the property located at 1501 West Shore Drive. That is TNC Lot 1 LLC. This property is located at the southeast corner of Shore Drive and Wilkie Road. It's a portion of the former Motorola campus at that location. For those of you who are on the board, a few years ago, you might recall that an entity rather related or associated with the current property owner of this property then sought and received approval for a PUD amendment, or a couple of PUD amendments actually, in the same year, as well as associated variations and a subdivision request. The image that's on this slide is reflective of the exterior building improvements that were proposed at that time. However, the building has been vacant since then.
That may
Does
need
this
to
not
be
work?
turned on the side.
Thank you. The overall former Motorola campus consists of approximately 64 acres and is shown with this red boundary. As you can see, the subject property, which is shown with a blue boundary, is encompassed within the overall 64-acre former campus. The subject property, for purposes of the request that's before you tonight, consists of approximately 22 acres, and again is shown with that blue boundary. As you can see, the 1421 building is located to the immediate east of the subject property, and I mention that specifically because in 2015, the variation, PUD amendment, and subdivision requests that were sought at that time were specifically a product of tenant requirements for the building at that time, and that's exactly what is happening here with respect to the 1501 building. So again, the overall site of the subject property is 22 acres. I'm showing you this slide to afford you the opportunity to see what the tenant has done in the way of extensive efforts to literally and figuratively reposition the site. As you can hopefully see, at least faintly, there's a square shape, light square shape in the northeast corner of the subject property, which at the time was reflective of a building that was in excess of 225,000 square feet larger than it is today. And what I mean by that is, as part of the repositioning efforts that the property owner undertook at that time, it actually demolished the northern 225,000 square feet of that property to now reduce it to its current footprint, which is reflected on this slide I'm about to show you, of about 195,000 square feet. Also included on the property, but not shown in this slide, or on this image, are 802 parking spaces, which are located south and west of the building as it exists today, and that is reflected here. The confidential tenant who seeks anonymity during the public review process as a matter of public safety proposes to occupy this entire 1501 property for the purpose of establishing a backup network operations center and a business resumption training suite. That's to be done in accordance with federal regulation and that tenant's associated security protocol. In the process of doing that, it requires a number of parking lot modifications, as well as fencing and mechanical equipment variations, accessory structure variations for guardhouses, driveway width variations to facilitate the parking lot modifications that I referenced. And again, all of those things are proposed in accordance with federal regulation and security measures. The most significant of those types of requests pertain to parking lot modifications and fencing. So this slide presents the proposed parking lot modifications, which are contemplated to be performed or installed in two phases. The first of which entails the construction of a total of 559 spaces, which is actually a reduction from the 802 that currently exist on the property. That reduction is as a consequence of the drive aisle relocations and widenings, as well as the turnaround points that are reflected in sort of the grayed out areas that you can see on this slide. Phase 2 entails the construction of an additional 342 spaces located on the north side of the subject building, and that's anticipated to support the demand for the occupancy of the remaining 35% of the building. So again, phase 1 parking is intended to supply the parking required for the demand associated with 65% of the building, or what equates to about 127,000 square feet. Phase 2 is intended to supply the demand for 35% occupancy of the building, or what amounts to about 68,000 square feet. As I said, the other significant component of the variation requests relates to fencing and mechanical equipment screening. The slide here presents those specific areas, which I'll describe in greater detail. The first is an 8-foot tall picket-style perimeter security fence. It's not well reflected here, but as you can see, there's sort of a dashed line that's reflected around the perimeter of the improved portion of the site. So on the west, around the parking area, around the south, along the north side of Cellular Drive, and then of course along the east side, and then along the south boundary of Shore. Additionally, there's an 8-foot tall chain link fencing with slats that's proposed to both secure and obscure transformers that are proposed to be located in the areas shown in blue. Second, or rather third, a 17-foot and 4-inch tall CMU, or concrete masonry unit screen wall that is shown in green on both the north and south sides of the building to obscure and secure the proposed generators. Next is a 6-foot tall CMU screen wall to secure the gas meters shown in the area that's orange, that's the northeast corner of the building. And last but not least, 6-foot tall and 8-foot tall CMU screen walls along the south and east sides of the building shown in the pink areas for the purpose of securing AC condensing units. This slide depicts the types of, 2 of the 3 types of fencing or screening items that are proposed. Obviously, the picket-style fencing that's identified or depicted on the left is reflective of the security fencing that's proposed to be located around the perimeter of the site for security. Needless to say, it's much more attractive than like a chain link fence with barbed wire, but obviously is intended to serve the purpose of ensuring that the site is secure. The image on the right is the chain link fencing with slats that is proposed to, as I said, both secure and obscure visibility of the transformers. I should note that in the project Electrical Engineers Communications with Commonwealth Edison, we learned that ComEd really doesn't want its transformers obscured in any respect, but because of aesthetics, it has agreed to allow this type of limited obscurity through the use of chain link fencing and somewhat decorative slats, as shown here. And then the third type of screening is the CMU walls that I mentioned earlier. I don't have an image of those, and that's really because they're not intended to be significant or stand out in any respect. They're really intended to blend in with the building exterior because they'll be painted with the same type of paint and color that is applied to the other portions of the building exterior. So lastly, I just want to mention that I have reviewed the proposed, or I should say form of ordinance that's on the agenda for this evening, excuse me, for consideration for approval, including specifically the proposed conditions. With respect to condition number 3, which pertains to landscaping, I thought you might find benefit in having the opportunity to see this slide, which depicts the specific locations where additional landscaping would be added in the way of shade trees, specifically in response to condition 3. That amounts to a total of 13 additional trees, and this is obviously somewhat difficult to see, so I'll describe it in a little better detail. On the north side of the building, you can see 4 green circles. Those are landscape islands where 4 additional shade trees would be added. On the west side of the building, you can see 2 green circles where 2 additional shade trees would be added. And then the south side of the building, there are 7 additional circles where, again, shade trees would be added. The red circles with the X depict locations where shade trees would otherwise be required to be installed in accordance with the village's landscape ordinance, but cannot be installed due to site improvement conflicts, in this case specifically impervious surface sidewalk, which is necessary for the functional use of the entryways. So that's all I have. I'm happy to address any questions you might have.
Thank you. Mr. Perkins, do you have anything to add?
Nothing to add, just that we've been working with Torben Partners. We're fortunate to have them as a property owner, and they've been able to reposition this property. Most communities that have had large campuses that businesses have left sitting vacant or being torn down, and the 1421 building now has HSBC and Northrop Grumman, and now we have this proposal. So staff recommended approval, and the Plan Commission did as well.
And unanimously, I might add, right?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
All right, questions from the board. Trustee Rosenberg.
Thank you. Mr. Bauer, how are you, sir?
Good, how are you?
Good. So the phase 1, phase 2, where can you kind of describe for us how that would be cordoned off, so to say?
Absolutely. It's actually much simpler than it may look. So the phase 1 parking area would be all of the parking areas located immediately south and west of the building. And again, that is really just a modification of existing parking improvements, which would include, for example, along Shore Drive, shifting the curb cut to the east, and then adding that turnaround feature, which is again all part of the site's security. And then phase 2 parking is the northern parking area. What I mean by that is specifically the field of parking shown on the north side of the building. I think I neglected to mention that with the addition of those 342 parking spaces on the north side of the building as part of phase 2, there's a loss of 3 parking spaces from the connectivity of affording vehicular access between phase 1 and phase 2. So that's how you get from 559 to 342 to a net of 898.
As far as the actual building itself, where will phase 1, phase 2, how will that be done? I mean, is that,
There are no exterior modifications proposed to the building. The building footprint is today exactly as it would continue to exist in conjunction with these proposed parking lot modifications. The building entrance is located, the main building entrance is located on the west side of the site, so it's immediately adjacent to the Phase 1 parking area. Does that answer your question?
not exactly. So the phase 2 part that could be added later, is that in the back section to the east, I guess, or?
It would just, Trustee Rosenberg, it would just be occupancy of the building. So phase 1 is a portion of the existing building. And I'll show
That's
you
what I
here.
was
So it's
asking.
generally this area that will be phase 1. And then phase 2, they can't occupy the remainder of that building until they build the additional parking. Otherwise, the site would be under-parked per our code.
Right, I was just trying to figure out where exactly in the structure it would be as phase 1 for you.
Oh, the interior. I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
I'm sorry,
your
that's
question.
okay. I didn't explain it, so. No, I appreciate your bringing the tenant and, making use of this. We appreciate the use of the building, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Trustee Scaletta.
So going through all the materials and also reading the minutes, there's a lot of changes being made, and there's a lot of work to be done. But it's a lot of exterior work that's being done to kind of improve the infrastructure for the new tenant. So I can appreciate everything that you guys have gone through, and I've read through the Plan Commission minutes, and they addressed a lot of the questions that I had. So thank you for your time there as well. I have no other questions, and I'm ready to make a motion at the appropriate time.
Please do.
Okay.
Go ahead, John.
I'm getting there, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor. Sorry. Just want to make sure I get it right. I would, I guess I had one question before I make the motion. You understood that you're going to work with our fire department to make sure that all the turning radiuses will be to
In
their
accordance with
satisfaction?
condition 2, we do, correct.
Okay. I would move to concur with the recommendation of the Plan Commission.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Scaletta, second by Trustee Rosenberg. Any questions or comments, further questions or comments from the board? Anything from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mayor, do we need to do one more in legal?
Oh, we do.
For that?
No, we already.
Well,
did-
the
yes,
ordinance.
Yeah.
So under legal,
Want
not
me to take
official
that?
congratulations yet.
You want me to
So,
take it?
Go to legal, and who would like to move approval of the ordinance?
I'll go.
Trustee Rosenberg.
Thank you. I would move an ordinance amending planned unit development ordinance numbers 88-060, 15-016, and 15-040, and granting variations from Chapter 28 of the Arlington Heights Municipal Code, parens Northwest Crossing, 1501 West Shore Drive.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Rosenberg, second by Trustee Canty. Anything from the board or audience? Saying none, roll call.
Trustee Rosenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Canty,
Yes.
Trustee Scaletta,
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz,
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia,
Yes.
Trustee Baldino,
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck,
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. Okay, now we're official. Thank you.
Thanks again.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, that is all under legal, and so we move on to the report of the village manager.
Nothing further this evening.
Anything from the board under petitions and communications? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
By Trustee Baldino, second by Trustee Schwingbeck. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all for joining us this evening.